for every £2 above 100, you lose £1 from your personal allowance. So let's say you earn 120k. How much of your personal allowance will you lose? If you put money into your pension, it drops your adjusted net income. Not your entire income, your adjusted net income. But the adjusted net income is basically your net income adjusted to accommodate things like your pension deduction. But the pension goes out before it's taxed. So that tax is based on what is left after the pension deduction. And then what you now pocket is your net income, your take home. So number one, personal allowance, and understand what happens over 100k. Okay. So now what is personal allowance? We already know that. So I'm just going to ask, and if you're not sure, you can ask. Don't be shy. When we say the first thing on the list is personal allowance, how much is anyone here from Scotland today? We had like 2 people from Scotland on Saturday. No one from Scotland. Okay. In England and Wales, and even Scotland, what is the personal allowance? How much is it? Tell me in the chat. It's a workshop. We bounce off each other's energy. I want to get you involved. Okay, excellent. I'm seeing some answers coming. 12.5, 12.570. Favor said 12.570. Excellent, Favor. Fanny said 12.5. Yeah, Fanny, you're very close. It's actually 12.570. That 70 is important. Prash said 12.570. Chimek said 12.570. Good. You guys, you get the point. Basically, what it means, at the risk of repeating myself for the millionth time, is how much can I earn and not have to pay tax? If I earn this amount, the government will consider my income is too small to bother, so they'll say no tax. And some students know this, they'll just work and earn 12.570 and they don't pay tax. And also some directors of limited companies will pay themselves 12.570, no tax. So that means you're on 0% tax. Okay, that's personal allowance. Okay, so now the problem with that is above a certain amount of income, you start losing that personal allowance. You've heard me talk about the 100,000 tax trap or the 60% tax trap. What happens in that instance is that once you hit 100k, then for every £2 above 100k, you lose £1 out of your personal allowance. Okay, so what happens is that if you've got like 110k, then it's going to be 10,000 divided by 2. 5,000 goes out of your personal tax allowance. Okay, right, just to bring it home, I'm going to give you an example. Your personal allowance is 12.570. If you've got a pen or pencil, that will be handy. Even if you don't have, you can work this one out. I know you guys are all smart. If your income, your adjusted net income is £120,000, okay? Remember what I said. For every £2 above 100, you lose £1 from your personal allowance. A more confusing way, well, it's not more confusing, but £1 above 100, you lose 50p. But let's just say for every £2 above 100, you lose £1. So let's say you earn 120k. How much of your personal allowance will you lose? Now, just assume that 100k is your adjusted net income. How much of your personal allowance will you lose?
10k.
Okay, excellent. 10k. Okay, this is lovely. Excellent. Right.
This could save you several thousands of pounds, not just in your taxes and pensions. Have you fallen into the 60% tax trap as a doctor or healthcare professional without even knowing? It's crazy. I know you think the highest tax you can pay is 45%, but here's how it works. If your income exceeds 100,000, you start to lose your personal tax allowance, and by the time you hit about 125,000, you've lost your entire tax allowance. This means you're paying an effective tax rate of 60%. That's not good. You lose a lot of other benefits with it. Now, if it's something you've never thought about or you're worried you're not sure how to navigate it, you're in luck, because I've written a very clear guide with a 10-point checklist that you can use to avoid the 60% tax trap. One of the biggest ones is obviously paying more into your pension, but there are 9 other steps you can take. Check the link in the description and download it for free. Let me know if it helps. Let's jump right back into the episode.
Lovely. So you guys have all got that personal allowance 10K. So that just makes sense to you that by the time you hit 125K, you've lost 12.5. By the time you hit 125K, 140, you've lost 12,570. Okay, basically divide by 2. And what is the personal tax allowance again? The amount you don't pay tax on? 12,570. So by hitting just that amount, you've lost your entire tax-free allowance. So you're effectively paying tax at 60% rate. Okay. So that's the allowance bit that we need to look at. And what's one way? One of the ways we've already mentioned it here. Also shared his experience. Okay. I'll consider that as a testimonial. Okay. Of his experience of he was in the 60% tax trap, then he contributed to his pension and was able to, come out of that tax trap. Okay. So that's one of the way to get back that your allowance, because basically what happens is that the government sort of, if you put money into your pension, it drops your adjusted net income, not your entire income, your adjusted net income, which is basically your gross income minus deductions like pensions and the rest of it will give you your adjusted net income. Okay, so if you've got that, tick a tick under A for personal allowance. Now, the next allowance is basically your pension annual allowance.
Can I ask a question? Sorry.
Of course.
Is there a I try to look it up like specifically to say this is the adjusted net income, because I think it's very easy for us to know our gross salary, and of course if we add some sort of extra, like I guess locums or what we've kind of done, then it's a bit like, how do you kind of get your adjusted net income, because that's kind of the end point where everything else actually, your child allowance, whatever, tax free, everything starts from there, not from the gross.
That is true. So everything comes from adjusted net income, and we'll come back to adjusted net income many times today. So there's a tool I built to answer this question. Is the NHS Salary Calculator.com. I'll share it also in the WhatsApp group so you can use it. You can use it to work out your take-home pay. You can see what your adjusted net income is. It's automatically going to deduct your NHS pension. So I've built in your NHS pension depending on what level of pension you contribute. If you're in above 65K, you're obviously contributing the highest, which is 12.5%. And that tool allows you to play around with contributing more to your pension till you get to the point where you are entirely outside the 60% tax trap. I built it last year, or was it last 2 years? Because someone was asking me the same question. I was bringing out paper and pen, and I thought, well, you know what? It would be nice to have. So it's being used by thousands of doctors now. So last time we checked, 25,000 visits. So I'll share it, Karen. But let me just explain adjusted net income quickly. Your adjusted net income is basically if you've got like a salary of, let's say, 100,000, you're putting 12,500 pounds into your pension, your adjusted net income is going to be 100,000 minus 12,500 that I put into your pension. So basically, it means it's not just your income, is your net income is adjusted to deduct all those deductions. Now, this is just a simplistic way to show it. If you've contributed to salary sacrifice, it will then be 100,000 minus 12,570 minus the 2,000 pounds you contributed to salary sacrifice. It will give you your adjusted net income. Does that make sense? Right? You've got it. Lovely. Thank you, Karen. That's important because sometimes I just gloss over it and people might not understand it. But we're going to be talking about adjusted net income more in the group. I'm going to share the NHS Salary Calculator. I'm resisting the temptation to go now to play with it so that we can keep moving. But the adjusted net income is basically your net income adjusted to accommodate things like your pension deduction. So for most of us here, you can find out what your adjusted net income is. So you can find out whether you're in the 60% tax trap by looking at the HMRC login. So if you haven't got the HMRC login, it's really important because you can see live what is happening. You can see whether you've crossed, and sometimes they will tell you. I've had people attend them. Some of people in my mastermind program, my full 6 months financial coaching program, they've told me that they never realized for once. They just logged in for the first time after hearing something like this, and it was right there in black and white to say your personal tax allowance is now 2,000 because you've lost a son. So, it's written right there in black and white. It's hidden in plain sight. So, if you have any trouble around that, if you have trouble working on your adjusted net income, we've got 4 whole weeks. Pop it in the group. I'm going to be popping into that group 9:30 p.m. every day. 9:30 p.m. I might pop in a little bit earlier or a little bit later, but I'm going to be looking at it daily to see if there's any issue. What I tend to find out is that before I come, most people's questions have also been answered, either by other people. This is the power of group support, because then it's not like I'm not like the alpha and omega. The other people are answering based on what they've learned as well from us, either by previous workshops. Okay, good. Allowances. Now,
Yeah, sorry.
pen,
So the adjusted net income, you talked about deducting your personal allowance and salary sacrifice. What about your pay as you earn? Is that deducted as well before the adjusted net income? Your
do you
tax,
mean your salary or your PAYE?
your
Oh, okay.
PAYE, yeah.
No. So what is being taxed is your adjusted net income. That's what's being taxed.
Okay.
So your PAYE is based on your adjusted
On
net
your
income.
adjusted net income. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
it doesn't make sense. I know it
Yeah,
can be a bit
thank you.
confusing. So if you pull out your pay slip, you'll see they've deducted tax, they've deducted pension, but the pension goes out before it's taxed, which is fantastic. If you've got like 100K coming in and 12, let me just use simple number. Let me say 10,000 goes out. So what is left is 90,000. Then you see what else is deducted. Tax is deducted. So that tax is based on what is left after the pension deduction. Okay. And then what you now pocket is your net income, your take home pay. Yeah. So that NHS Salary Calculator actually will show you your take home pay and all that kind of stuff. Okay. I hope that helps. Good. Now, that's why if you decide, like what Ozzo gave, the testimonial he gave earlier, he put a bit more money into his pension, either through the NHS pension or you do it through a personal pension we call SIPP, or through your private pension, whatever pension you've got. That drops your adjusted net income because pension is not taxed until you start to draw it. So that's one of the big defenses of the 60% tax trap. Dropping your adjusted net income, either by contributing to your workplace pension or your personal pension. That is one way to do it. Of course, there are other ways. You could do things like if you claim tax relief on your professional expenses, these days HMRC will add it to your personal tax allowance, increase your personal tax allowance. So they do that sometimes. If you do things like gifting, but these are really, really smaller ways. The main way is through pension contribution. Right. Any questions around adjusted net income or personal allowance before we go into pension allowance? Any more questions around this?
Sorry, Andy. I'd
Yeah.
just like to know, NI, is it deducted before or after tax, that pay tax?
Lovely question. This is a simple way that has helped me to think about it. NI is just tax. Okay, I don't know why they bother. It's just tax. Because if you think about it, if you do salary sacrifice, okay, then there's no NI on it and there's no tax. Okay. But with the new rule that the government has introduced, if you now do salary sacrifice above 2K, now this doesn't apply to just normal NHS pension. If you do salary sacrifice above 2K, there will still be no tax, but there will now be NI. I just consider NI as just another tax, basically. That's why I look at it, except that it's dedicated or it's ring fence for NHS and welfare and all that. So yes, the NI is part of the tax to consider. Does that help?
Thank you. Yeah, it was clear.
Okay, yeah. Good. Right. Now let's move quickly to the next allowance. We've already touched on it, so that should be quick.